Oh, let me hear your war cry. Oh, thank you for joining me another episode of Beating Cancer Today, the podcast where hope meets action. I'm your host, Kevin Hennies, a stage 4 colorectal cancer survivor. Against all odds, I defied the doctor's predictions and took my health into my own. Now, I'm here to share my journey and alternative methods that help me. But it's not just about my story. It's about yours too. Join me as we navigate through the challenges of cancer together, providing support, insights, and empowerment. Together, we'll beat cancer, one episode at a time. Oh, let me hear your war cry. Oh, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Beating Cancer Today, Warrior Wednesday, brought to you in part by our new website, www.beatingcancertoday.com. You can still find us on just about every social media platform. You'll see all of our videos all over the place. But after meeting a series of censorship efforts and I decided to try to circumvent being stifled. They're trying to stifle me and the topics that we discuss, and that's just not cool. So we tried to get it. Well, we actually did obtain an offshore server. So now beatingcancertoday.com is impervious to censorship, and the page is being added to and built up every day. So check it out, beatingcancertoday.com. Follow, like, and subscribe on all of these videos so we can continue growing this platform and start funneling the serious followers down to beatingcancertoday.com. That's where we're going to have the most streamlined and accurate research and literature posted. So still tune into our Facebook page, our group page, Beating Cancer Today, and you'll be able to see all of our literature there. But enough about that. Today, Dr. Debbie Ozment, I want to try to space out her education, DDS, MS, NBC-HWC, ABAHP. So Dr. Debbie Ozment has been a private practice dentist since 1985. And she's a graduate of Oklahoma University dentistry, where she served as adjunct faculty there for 7 years. Dr. Ozment completed her master's degree in metabolic and nutritional medicine at USF. So this is where it took a steer for me. This is where the intrigue came into. She was a dentist. She went through dentistry school, and then she stopped and went over to USF to get her nutritional and metabolic nutritional medicine degree. So that kind of was odd to me. So I knew that there had to be some sort of a correlation there. She's the host of Vitality Made Simple, a weekly podcast, and she's also a TEDx veteran. I've been long-winded enough. It's going to sound much better when it comes from her. Dr. Debbie Ozment, thank you for spending the time with us today. And please tell us about yourself.
Well, Kevin, thank you for this opportunity. I just was a girl from Oklahoma who went to dental school and had a very boutique practice, very relational practice. Got to know my patients, kind of knew their dog's name and, everything about them. I mean, really got to know people, very relational. I started noticing that people were getting younger, getting diseases younger and younger. They were having longer med list starting in about 1995. I started practicing in 85, but it was really like shocking, more and more cancer. Of course, that has skyrocketed lately, but consequently, Kevin, I decided to go back to school. I went through a Mayo Clinic program in wellness coaching. That's the NBC HWC. There's now a national certification. But, being a dentist, I thought I really had to protect my license. I went through a fellowship in anti-aging medicine with the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. And that's the ABAHP, all those, I'm trying to get the whole alphabet, and I think that's what scared my husband. But then they offered a great master's program in nutrition and functional medicine nutrition. So, and that was in a medical school. So that was sort of my insurance from the dental license standpoint to be able to look at not just the oral microbiome, but the gut microbiome. So what I do now, my practice is limited to physician referrals. I see people who have all kinds of chronic inflammatory diseases. I see lots and lots of cancer, lots of colon cancer, which is what made me seek you out originally. Kevin and I, for the listeners, were I thought I was interviewing him and he thought he was interviewing me. So I'm looking forward to having you on Vitality Made Simple. But
well, I was kind of hoping that would be the direction we headed.
Yeah, it'll be great. So I test the oral microbiome using DNA technology, salivary diagnostics, and I also test the gut microbiome using PCR testing called a GI map. So from that, we find out all kinds of things, and that's what sort of earned my reputation. I mean, someone called last week and said, I have stage 4 colorectal cancer, and your name comes up everywhere. I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's sort of how it's evolved in my world. And we're going to talk about some ways that I can really help people.
Yeah. So, well, I'm going to hold this question. What's the correlation between colorectal cancer and oral health? Don't answer that. But, so we'll circle back to that one because I don't even want to get in. That's probably the biggest question that I have right now, because I have colorectal cancer. So that's kind of like when you'd said that before we went on air, I just, that's a big interest of mine. The connection between dentistry and metabolic nutritional practices, because you obviously went a different direction than you initially thought you were going to go, right? So, what was that connection?
Dentists are really trained, Kevin, as carpenters. I mean, we fix teeth. When our daughter was, in kindergarten, they said, "What does your mama do?" And she said, "Well, she's a laundry lady and she fixes teeth." And so probably in that order. But we're trained to fix teeth, and we really, at least in the 80s, we didn't look at the mouth as connected to the body, and we really. The research was initiating in terms of heart disease and, oral bacteria. But nothing has really changed a lot in the last 30, 40 years. Now, interestingly, Hippocrates said that you could cure arthritis by removing a tooth. I mean, it's been well known throughout history that these teeth are affecting other areas, but it's just not common knowledge yet, I would say. So I went back to school, and it gets to be a slippery slope. You know how it is when you're interviewing people. You hear of this person and this person, and this. Oh wait, there's this angle, and that's exactly how it's been. I said I feel like I got pushed off a cliff into a Class 5 rapids, not knowing really where that canoe's going. But it's been a wonderful adventure, and just learning about root cause, about, everything has a reason. And I've seen too many times that people were treating symptoms with these long med lists that I mentioned earlier. And so it's like, no, I want to find the cause. Started going to medical conferences all over the world, really, just trying to kind of unravel this. That's how we went through the master's program at the Morsani College of Medicine. It was a medical school. They'd never let a dentist in. And they were like, "Oh, why are you here?" And so we had to write 27 case histories. And in those case histories, I incorporated oral DNA. I started testing the oral microbiome via oral DNA in 2010 when the test first was developed by Dr. Ronald McGlennon. And so anyway, I incorporated that. But, the medical school didn't still address the mouth ever as an important part of systemic health. So that's what I called my final thesis "The Forgotten Orifice," and then that kind of led to the TED Talk. It was sort of being a smart aleck, quite frankly, calling it "The Forgotten Orifice" because it's dismissed in the medical world in terms of its impact on systemic health.
Well, yeah, I mean, systemic health, systemic cancers, really. I mean, you could tell there's a direct correlation between, systemically or systematically. Is that what I'm looking for? Systematically? Like, isn't one of the symptomatically, one of the symptoms for some cancers, some blood cancers, don't they show in the mouth first?
Well, inflammation, it's a very big source of inflammation. We know now, Kevin, that root canals are teeth on probation. I mean, how in the world, how many people have I sent for root canals or done root canals on? And now I know that they literally can initiate cancers because of the bacteria that they are sort of humidors for. So lots and lots of things. And as we, as our conversation develops into Fusobacterium, you're exactly right. These causal agents, many of them can be in the mouth. And as you so beautifully said, it's not one thing. We never think that a cancerous tumor or Alzheimer's disease or infertility or autoimmunity is one thing. We have this whole terrain, this whole milieu that works together to create illness. But there are triggers, there are things that have a bigger impact.
For some symptoms presenting for different blood cancers, leukemia and lymphoma or whatever, like, what are some of the things that might present, like a swollen gums, bleeding, or lesion, or whatever it is? How is that? You made a connection with specifically colorectal cancer. Are they different than that?
Yes, they are different than that, but I think the basis of most cancers is chronic inflammation. Now, the bacteria in the mouth that live under the gums, that live in these biofilms, these protected biofilms, actually work together to not just produce inflammatory cells, but to also translocate to other parts of the body. I mean, what's in the mouth is moving everywhere else. We find the DNA of these oral pathogens, Kevin, in the brain postmortem. We find them, of course, enriched in colorectal tumors in more than 50% of colorectal tumors.
Wow.
We find them in breast cancer cells. We find them in the placenta with adverse pregnancy outcomes. We find them in prostates. We find them all over the body. They do not stay in the mouth. They move. And when they move, they have other dastardly things that they can do. So it's not one thing.
But they originate or present initially in the mouth.
Absolutely.
So the oral manifestations, those might be like the first signs of underlying disease, like something in the blood, or like you're saying, colorectal, or.
Well, the first signs are often overlooked by us dentists. The first signs are chronic inflammation, bleeding gums. And Kevin, I don't mean like gushing bleeding gums. I mean any inflammation, early gum disease. And these are things that that people can check on their own. There are saliva tests that dentists can do, and there are home saliva tests that you can.
You're not talking about gingivitis. You're talking about, actual disease.
Gingivitis is actual disease.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, actual cancerous disease. Sorry.
Right. Well, but it's that inflammatory cascade that starts there. Of course, really, we're not even talking oral cancer. We're talking about cancers at distant locations. And so, I mean, specifically colon cancer is my my area of interest, because I'm seeing it just skyrocket these days among young people. I mean, I saw a case last week in a 37-year-old, stage 4 colon cancer.
Yeah. I mean, well, conversely, how we're saying awareness from your mouth affects your ability to track down disease. Well, once you have disease, how does the disease affect your mouth, or the treatment of these diseases affecting your mouth? The other way around.
No, that is a great question. It can be a bi-directional. It can be a two-way highway that causes problems. So, for example, if we could move to, say, type 2 diabetes, over 50% of the population has that, and type 2 diabetes can predispose people to all kinds of cancers due to the inflammatory component and the insulin problem. So anybody who has even low-level gum disease, gingivitis, not a lot of bone loss, something that might be easily overlooked, or you're fine, we'll see you later, that will increase blood sugar. As blood sugar increases, that increases inflammation all over the body, including the mouth. And so these two things elevate each other systematically. Take heart disease. So inflammation in the mouth impacts heart disease. It inflames this 30,000 miles of blood vessels that run through the body. And I mean, it is it's super important. And when people start taking blood pressure medicine, Kevin, those things usually dry out the mouth. So then you dry out the mouth, and then you're in for another set of problems. You can just see this cascade, this medical merry-go-round that I know you talk about a lot, that people get on trying to figure out, where did this problem originate?
Well, how is it? So it seems to me like what we're saying is that the oral, whether it's your dentist or oral surgeon or whatever, your mouth is like the first line of defense, right? So shouldn't that person, whether it's the oral surgeon or the dentist or whoever you go to, shouldn't that person be diagnosing cancer stuff left and right, or other diseases left and right?
Well, what they should be diagnosing is early gum disease, because and I believe they should be testing the oral microbiome for specific bacterial profiles. It's so easy. It's a saliva test. It's a swish and spit test. And so these are tests that your dentist can do. And like I said, there's now an excellent one that can be done on your own, that people can order to find out their levels of these different bacteria. But when that is nipped in the bud, then absolutely it lowers any chances of cancer. I mean, it lowers your risk, and also Fusobacterium, the specific bacteria that we talked about a little bit off camera, is predictive for colorectal cancer. Absolutely predictive.
So I mean, I obviously I'm not in the dentist office all the time, but not as much as I should be. But I just don't hear of a lot of exposure with dentists diagnosing cancer or the precursors of cancer or whatever. I think that that's an encouragement to go to the dentist, I think.
Well, I think it would really be an encouragement for your listeners to check out bristlehealth.com. This is a decentralized medicine. In dentistry, people are staying pretty busy fixing teeth. That's pretty much a full-time job. And of course, dental insurance has impacted the ability of dentists to have a lot of time to talk about things. It's not, prevention, as you well know, is not a moneymaker. And so I encourage people to go to bristlehealth.com, BRISTLE health.com, can order a very inexpensive test to test for yourself. I have an affiliate with them. I will disclose that. So put in, Vitality 15 to get $15 off, all caps Vitality. It's a great test. It's going to show some gut. It's going to show oral bugs that are there. It's going to show how well the gut's doing. I mean, it's a great starting point. And Kevin, if people have to take initiative. I mean, that's why you're doing this podcast. You're helping people take control of their own health to learn and have better questions to ask their doctors. And so I would say, get this test. Take your results to your dentist. If your dentist blows you off, find another dentist.
No, that's a huge part of the message that I try to send is, be the captain of your own vessel. You got to be your own advocate. So that I just never thought that this was some place to start. You always think, okay, well, I got to go get a colonoscopy. I got to go do, you're always thinking about the medical side of it. You never think about, geez, I'm wondering how long ago I could have been diagnosed with this disease. How long did I carry that around with me because I neglected to go to the dentist first? So I just, I wonder about that.
Well, don't look back. The thing is, you've come so far. The research is relatively new. I would say in the last 10 years on Fusobacterium nucleatum. Fusobacterium nucleatum is an oral bacteria that travels to the gut. If it's in the gut, Kevin, it came from the mouth. Period. It's an oral bacteria. It can't proliferate, it can't grow in the gut if it's not in the mouth.
Yeah.
But it's not on the radar yet of every dentist. It's on the radar of a lot of people. And there's, this is a fun area. I mean, I've been out of school for almost 40 years, and I am more excited about my job than ever because I see people get well. And so the place to start is to take, like you said, drive your own ship and see where your Fusobacterium is. Then there's a lot of strategies to deal with it preemptively. Say, for example, I guess tell me how your cancer was diagnosed initially.
Initially, I self-neglect. So initially I had, I was working and I was just grinding like every day. Life got in the way and I was just grinding and I was neglecting myself. I wasn't eating. My lifestyle was terrible. And I made a lot of excuses. I had other things going on, distractions that, I couldn't allow getting sick to be in the way, getting lightheaded and dizzy. And then eventually I started passing out, and it turns out all my blood was going to a tumor that was really big. So I didn't have any blood like running through my system because it was all feeding tumors. So it got to the point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. So I couldn't ignore it anymore. So that's how it led to my diagnosis. I had to go to the hospital and get some blood work done, and that's how it led to my diagnosis. So I don't know. I mean, I'm wondering, was that preventable? Because I had so much self-neglect. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't exercising. I wasn't eating right. Well, I mean, you have a degree in metabolic and nutritional medicine. What's your opinion on the metabolic theory of cancer over the genetic theory of cancer?
Oh, I 100% agree with Dr. Seyfried. He's been on my podcast. I've read his book. I pass his book out to many patients. When they come in to see me, Kevin, with, say, breast cancer, colorectal cancer, I have them watch the podcast with Dr. Seyfried, Thomas Seyfried, who wrote Cancer as a Metabolic Disease. And so many of them, become keto. They start, measuring everything, and they feel better, and they're dealing better with their treatment. So to answer your question, could you have avoided it? I mean, you can't go back. And people that, your listeners who are taking advice from your podcast, taking advice from my podcast, who are getting healthier, they don't know what snake doesn't bite them. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man, that is a great phrase. They don't know what snake doesn't bite them. That is so perfect. What a great analogy that is.
If they're constipated, if they have diarrhea or both, a lot of people, are constipated for 5 days and they have diarrhea for a day. Then they're, what do you think the record is of number of days without a bowel movement, Kevin? See if you can win the prize here.
I don't even want to guess.
Yeah, 31 days. 31 days.
That's the record. Somebody went 31 days with
had not pooped. Yeah. So, that's an early sign. And then if they go for a colonoscopy and have polyps, that's an early precursor of colorectal cancer. And then, of course, they can do the saliva testing. And if their Fusobacterium nucleatum is high, they are at risk for colorectal cancer. They're also at risk for breast cancer. They're also at risk for memory loss and a whole, bucket load of other things. But that people can test themselves. And I think it's essential because you just don't have as many options when you wait till you're sick.
Yeah. I mean, by the time you wait till you're sick, it's too late, right? I mean, well, like you mentioned all those things, the precursors or signs, not even involving oral signs, the other signs, the polyps, the hemorrhoids,
Right.
I had everything. I had all those signs. No problem here. Let's keep working. You just, you ignore things. You make excuses. I'm dizzy because, we've been working so much. I haven't eaten very much, I look gray because, I'm tired. I haven't gotten much sleep. I've been working, or, whatever the case is, you make these excuses and you don't know about the snake that doesn't bite you. Right. So, I mean, all these things could have told you the tale, but you make excuses, you neglect them and then ultimately it slaps you in the face. So,
well, in your personality, you're a go-getter. You're a Marine. I mean, you're not going to stop and say, I think something might be wrong. No, you're going to mind over matter, right? Isn't that how you were trained?
Absolutely. I mean, and also you really don't know what to base your opinions on, really. Like you said, I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there. And I mean, how do you keep up with it all? You went from educating yourself in one area all the way to a different area and educating yourself almost as if, because they don't really teach you much about nutrition in medical school, from what I understand. So, you actually went a completely different direction, almost kind of taboo, in the medical field, right? So I mean, how do you know what to base your? Well, I mean, you went straight to the textbooks, but for the most people, there's a lot of marketing out there and commercialization of medications and big pharma. The marketing influence and indoctrination of the social brainwashing. How do you know what's real? How do you know even what to base your opinion on?
My filter, Kevin, is really to think about design of our bodies and what makes sense. I think there's way too much complication added to health that is stressing people out. Like, you're not doing it right. Oh, you're keto, but you're not keto flex. Oh, you're, you know what I'm saying? I mean, people just get stressed out over nothing. And so the way I look at it is very logical, very simple, really. I think, okay, we're designed we need air. Okay, so deep breathing, nasal breathing, exercise, that increases air. We're designed for water. We're not going to last too long without water. Okay, so stay hydrated. I did a big talk yesterday, and I talked about just the skin fold test for chronic unintentional dehydration, so you stay hydrated. You try to eat real food, don't stress over being perfect, but think about what your ancestors would recognize as real food. It didn't have a label, it didn't, it was pretty much real food. And they probably ate slowly. Pardon me?
It was pretty much real food.
Pretty much. You're younger than me, but at 65, my grandparents, they were growing a lot of it here, and they were raising their cows and chickens and everything else. And but think, real food, and then think about detox. We're designed to sweat. We're designed to poop. We're designed to be hydrated enough to urinate. You know what I'm saying? So I look at it from a very simple, logical standpoint, because I see so many people through my fellowship at A4M. There's just a lot of stressed out people who are excellent at what they're doing, but they're spending a lot of time arguing over details. And when people will do the basics first, they're setting their body up to heal.
Yeah, you have to. I just came from my parents' house, right? And so I'm 50, and as long as I can remember, well, for 50 years, my parents are, oh yeah, we got to go on a diet. We got to go on a diet. Monday, we're going to start Monday. They're notorious, right? So they have failed at diets for literally my entire life, and I'm the youngest, like one of the youngest, right? So like they've been failing even before that. So people fail at diets, right? So I go over to visit them, and I'm lucky enough that they're like 3 hours away, so I can get over there, and so they say, oh, Kevin, can you put us on a diet? I said, no, absolutely not. People fail at diets. I didn't diet. I changed my lifestyle. You know what? I still do eat some stuff that's cheat, whatever, that's not great for you. If I need a filler, I'll throw in sometimes a little slice of bread, a little piece of toast or something, just to kind of fill the, but for the most part, I try not to eat anything white or starchy or carbohydrate, whatever. So, I try to stick to the ketogenic spirit of things. But listen, people fail, when you're a militant person and so I just went over there to talk to them. Right. And they're freaking out. They're totally freaking out. What if I do this? We go to the store and I go through some organic options and stuff like that. Well, what are we going to do? We're going to die if we fail. Whoa, you're putting a lot on this. It doesn't have to be that way. Just don't do it. Live like a caveman. What did cavemen eat out of a box or a bag or a drive-through? No, just don't do it. It's not about what you're eating. It's just don't eat stuff. So yeah. So that for individuals facing like a cancer diagnosis, what advice metabolically? We talk about prevention. The metabolic and nutritional principles, how do you incorporate those into the treatment plan of the cancer patient?
So I typically do an oral DNA test. When people see me in the office, I use salivary diagnostics, oral DNA. And then I do a GI map, a stool test, Kevin. And from those two tests, I can find out. I joke that I can know what's in their closet because I can learn so much about them. Sure. And so I help them get their guts healthy, and that's going to include dealing with fusobacterium. If it's high, then I may use antibiotics. I may use some colostrum. That's a way that I help people heal their leaky gut. I totally agree with you. It's not eating just a lot of, the junk food, but enjoying good food. I mean, I tell people, you got to enjoy your life. This is life. And, part of living well is having an eternal perspective and knowing that you're not going to live forever. You're not going to beat death no matter what you do. So you don't want to be miserable while you're here. You want to enjoy your relationships. And so that involves food sometimes. Then I get their mouth cleaned up. It's huge. One of the markers, I'm sure you've talked about this on some of your podcasts. One of the markers of inflammation in the body is C-reactive protein. Now that's a CRP.
Yeah.
And so, say a real case in 2013 that we did, a doctor phoned me and said, Debbie, I'm afraid this woman has cancer. Her C-reactive protein is 18.1. And if you don't find anything, I'm going to start her on intensive cancer testing. So, Kevin, we did a saliva test. We found what's going on in her mouth, her oral microbiome. We cleaned her mouth up. I mean, I use ozone, I use a laser, I have a system. Cleaned her mouth up, taught her how to keep it clean. 3 months later from her therapy with me, she got retested and her C-reactive protein was 2.9. Now, that's all it's just a teeth cleaning. I mean, it was not super expensive. And that inflammatory number impacts cancer. It impacts stroke and heart attack. It impacts everything. Brain fog, energy, blah, 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 on and on.
Yeah. Oh my God. So, I mean, so there are, well, that's actually a good example of how dental health affects your ability to fight off disease, your immune system and everything else. What are your thoughts on how chemotherapy affects your dental health?
Well, I know that chemotherapy is effective in a lot of cases, but it absolutely affects dental health. People can break out in mouth sores, they can have all kinds of problems with chemotherapy. So, the cleaner I can help them keep their mouth, the healthier I can help them keep their gut, the fewer problems they're going to have orally. So, it's a big deal. The colostrum really helps people a lot too. One thing though, I would really love to talk about with Fusobacterium is that it causes chemo resistance. I mean, this is going to blow your mind, Kevin. You're going to fall out of your chair when I tell you about the research around this oral pathogen that moves to the gut, moves to other places. There's so much new research about how it causes resistance to chemotherapy of the cancer cells. It causes the cancer cells to be resistant to the chemotherapy.
So, well, there's a reason why I'm asking, why I steered it into that topic, into this conversation there, because since I've stopped getting chemo, right, I'm on this quest to build back a better version of myself. And some of that includes dental repair, right? Because the chemotherapy destroyed my mouth. So all my teeth just randomly started falling out. And and so I started getting implant after implant after implant. But was there any way to avoid that?
Well, I don't know how you were before that. If you had pretty serious gum disease, periodontal disease, that may have been a slippery slope. What kind of chemotherapy were you having?
All of it. What it felt like, I mean, so
5-fluorouracil, were you having cisplatin?
No, I had cisplatin. I had Fulfox, Fulfury, irinotecan. Gosh, but I think I have to ask my wife. I had about 3. I had some oral chemotherapy. I had almost 3 years of chemotherapy. So they kept switching.
Well, that absolutely impacted your mouth. And I'm glad to send you some of these research articles to put on your site, explaining how Fusobacterium, this oral bacteria that is relatively easy to get rid of, this bacteria that translocates to the gut, has been proven to make colorectal cancer cells resistant to chemotherapy. So far, we know it's 5-fluorouracil. We know it's cisplatin. There's another one of the platins that it's shown. Newest research is showing that if Fuso is enriched in the tumor, the chemo won't work. Kevin, I've seen it in real time. I had a patient who had a pump, a 5-FU pump. His cancer was not responding. he came in to see me. We tested it in his mouth. Sure enough, it's in his gut.
I had
Treated
that.
it in his gut with a $8 antibiotic called metronidazole, and suddenly his chemo starts working. I mean, I see it all the time now.
I had that. I had the pump. I had the pump that, the bag that you carry around with you for 3 days or whatever. Yeah, I had that. Can we hang out on this topic for a second? So, I mean, it just, okay. So, I mean, I want to hang out on this topic because I feel like anybody could. I don't feel like this is explored at all. And what you're saying is, I mean, I could have gone through 3 years of chemo, and if I had bad mouth, bad mouth work or bad dentistry, whatever it is, if I could have gone through 3 years of torture for no reason because it wasn't going to work because I had mush mouth for the most part.
Yes, that impacted it. That absolutely impacted it.
Why isn't this a bigger topic in oncology?
Oh, Kevin, I don't know. I send packets of research. These are peer-reviewed articles out of Nature, out of Cell, out of all the great journals, and send packets. I think oncologists are just busy. I think in their
well, cancer's a big business. Of course, they're busy.
In their defense, I'll tell you a really quick story, personal story. A friend of mine, an immunologist, had a new lab, and she was getting a new type of immune test. She's like, "Oh, Debbie, I was 62. This is 3 years ago, Kevin. Debbie, would you be my test case on this? Because you're 62, you're healthy, you don't take any meds, blah 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 blah." So I was like, yeah, maybe we'll find out my immune system's 40 or 30 or 20. I mean, I was just so excited. Well, Kevin, the results came back, and bottom line, I had early chronic lymphocytic leukemia.
No kidding.
Peru. Yeah. No symptoms, no blood markers, only this fancy new test that.
Doc, you waited 42 minutes into this conversation to drop that.
Well, I don't want to talk about me.
Well, the whole purpose of this is Warrior Wednesday. You are a warrior.
Hey, you're going to love this warrior story because she referred me to the best oncologist, and he looked at my blood stuff. I had 2% the bad cells, monoclonal B cells, 0 symptoms, 0 other blood markers. And he said, and I quote, Kevin, he said, "I don't want to see you till you're sick." Why did you have this test? That was in my email. So, my friend, the immunologist, she's like, "I'm so sorry. He's so crass." And I'm like, in his defense, he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
In his defense, he has no tools in his toolbox. This is why I started my podcast. It's decentralized medicine, Kevin. It's exactly what you're doing. You're taking responsibility for your own health. And so I started doing some things differently. I was already doing a lot. But I've been in a very toxic profession in terms of chemicals as a dentist. I mean, in the early 80s, we played with mercury. We'd roll it around, and we didn't think anything was wrong with it. And
I had a lot of it in my mouth.
Exactly, and I put it in and taken it out, and so consequently, the main thing different that I started doing for my own health was ozone. And so I started getting some ozone treatments, Kevin, and got retested a year later. And my number went from 2% to 1%. And the oncologist, like, "I've never seen that happen. We never see this go down." So, I mean, I so respect that you're doing this podcast to give people options, all kinds of options, because our bodies are designed to heal, and we just have to figure out what to do to facilitate that healing.
Yeah. I mean, I think that if we if we stopped interfering with God's plan, we would be much better off. They say, "Oh, man makes plan and God just laugh." So I think that we work really, really hard to interfere with the natural process of things. And it's kind of like governmental interference, is overreach. There's or big pharma stepping on it, whatever it is. It's just we make a whole lot of moves in order to jockey for position, in this world. And it's all through greed and whatnot. And ultimately the people that pay for it are the ones that don't have an immune system, so.
Right. And families suffer and relationships suffer. And, I feel like our bodies are our relationship vehicles, so those things that you and I talked about as the pretty simple things, fresh air and, getting out in nature and having time to laugh and play and have fun and not work all the time and, eat some real food and enjoy what you eat and don't feel guilty about it. I feel like an eternal perspective, as I mentioned earlier, is key because, if people think they're going to totally cheat death, they're going to be so stressed out all the time because, oh my goodness. But if you live a life to the fullest, with that perspective, then you can really decrease a heck of a lot of stress, which, I know, stress is a big part of cancer development.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? I tell you, I halfway joke about my parents. I'm fortunate to still have both of them. But boy, I tell you, they are, you ever see a bunch of clowns getting out of a small car? It's like, it is hilarious and they're watching, they're going to watch this. Right. So hi, Mom. So, so yeah, they scramble around. I hope that. Yeah. So they do, they scramble around and everything. The sky is falling, and it's really a comical. If you just relax for a second, take a breath and go through the motions, it doesn't have to be exact, but if you're within the spirit of things, you're in the right direction,
Exactly. It sort of starts somewhere. And, I tell my patients, try to make a B. Don't aim for an A+ in this whole, health race. You're gonna undo your positive effects with the stress that you experience and the relationships that you screw up. I mean, I've been right there telling people what to do. No, I'm like, I keep my should to myself. I don't put my should on other people because, people get mad. They don't want to see you coming.
Well, you ever see, I don't know if you boat ever or whatever, but I think I made this reference before in another episode, but that when you see somebody broken down on the sandbar or something like that, and you got a bunch of drunk fools that have been out on the beach all day, and everybody all of a sudden becomes a marine mechanic. You know what you ought to do? You ought to do this and you ought to do that. It always involves you spending, them spending your money and stuff, or everybody's got these big ideas and nobody has any experience in this or anything like that. They've never, so, and it's kind of like that, when you start surfing the internet, you just don't know what to kind of sink your hope into versus what is practical for your application.
Well, I would say if a product offers or promises to do everything, solve every problem, empty your dishwasher for you, then it's probably something to avoid. And it's probably a multi-level marketing. Not that all multi-level marketing are bad, but so many make a heck of a lot of false claims that, it's like you said, it's not one thing. It's a whole lifestyle. And so people have to be willing. They have to get to lesser pain, Kevin. You lesser pain for you is this healthy lifestyle now because you understand what you have to lose.
Yeah. I mean, when you know what's on the line, because it doesn't seem real. Everybody we're all going to die. We're all, when I was sick, I used to hear people say, well, we all got to die. So, and didn't we all start dying the moment we were born? Da, 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 da. Well, you know what? Let it be real. Let it be an imminent thing. And that you have like you're stamped with the expiration date. Let that happen. And then tell me we're all going to die. Well, you know what? I don't have to die, So, I don't, I'm not buying that, I feel like there's things to do. You got to put in the work, but this is very avoidable.
Absolutely. I mean, it's stewardship, like it's like with your money. You can't make a lot of money and, go to the casino every night and expect to have any money. It's like your marriage. You can't go on a trip once a year and think you're going to have a good marriage. It's a daily thing. It's all, it's all little pieces. And it's the same with our health, the very same.
Yeah. I just, when you got diagnosed and you first got this, that initial scare of being sick with the leukemia, did you drastically change anything, or did you just kind of gradually swing in one direction?
Well, Kevin, I was already, and this is 3 years ago. I mean, I was already, in this whole space. So, to like you were talking about other people were like, well, if Debbie got a cancer diagnosis, I might as well just forget it. I might as well not try. And, that was sort of the predominant thing. And chronic lymphocytic leukemia is an old person's disease. And I've always considered, I've always felt great, and I still do. But so the only thing I started looking for, I started researching just like I was my patient, and ozone is what came up. And so I really advocate. Yeah. I don't know if you've had Dr. Frank Schellenberger on your podcast, but he is awesome, and he will love to be on your podcast.
Okay.
He's fantastic. Tell him Debbie sent you. You guys will groove. He's terrific.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and reach out.
A lot. Now, one thing I did change. I started taking my blood sugar every morning, because the only thing that was a little bit out of whack is that my A1C was 5.5. Optimal, that's not in the danger range, but optimal is really 5.1. So 5.5 is, I think 5.7 is pre-diabetic. So I started working on my blood sugar, and I test my, I stick my finger every morning. I don't wear a continuous glucose monitor, but I do. It has impacted some of the, maybe how late I eat, or, some things like that. So,
but you're not diabetic.
I'm not diabetic, but I wanted to be more optimal in terms of blood sugar. So that's where I try to be.
So you did this ozone therapy, and then you didn't have to drastically change anything because you're already pretty dialed in. And it would nothing repurposed, nothing supplemental.
I do colostrum now, and I interviewed a great guy on colostrum recently on the podcast. Let me think what I do. I'm pretty careful about, I'm really like a no stress person. I really work on not having stress. One thing though, Kevin, I do fasting. Have you done any?
Yes. That's kind of what I was really dancing around that. I wanted you to say it.
Just jump in there with me. Look at me. You need to jump in there. Don't dance around.
Yeah. So that is.
Yeah.
So I told you I was just with my parents, right? So that was one of the things. My dad is type 2 diabetic, and he's getting a couple sticks a day of insulin, and he's constantly stays over, his level or whatever. And so I said, listen, let's just go ahead and break this down, strip down everything. Get everything stripped down. Let's go ahead and start your fast. Whatever you're eating right now, enjoy it because you're not eating again until tomorrow night. We're just gonna start small. You're gonna do like an 18-hour thing, and oh my goodness, the Twinkies and the Little Debbies, they're all calling out to him. Nope, you can't eat anything. And then when you break your fast, you're gonna break it with something good.
Yeah,
Something healthy. And he's like, really, really? Don't you know? For the whole weekend, he didn't have any insulin shots, none.
Yeah. Well, and he was real proud of you as a Marine when you first started. Now he's like, oh crap, he's a Marine and he's doing his mind games on me. We've done the fasting mimicking diet. Have you heard of that?
No, what?
Dr. Walter Longo's fasting mimicking diet. It's Prolon is actually the brand, but it's a 5-day mimicked fast, and you have little boxes of food. You don't get a lot, but you do get some, and it's very manageable for somebody starting. I would say just look up prolon.com and fasting mimicking diet. Walter Longo, look him up on.
You know what? For me, I don't want nobody telling me what to. For me, it has to be me. Like I have to make a choice. I have to make a choice that, okay, you know what? I'm not going to put that in my mouth. And I think that when you get to a point that you can't control what you put into your mouth, you are a weaker person than what you used to be. You just gave up then. So I mean, I think it's imperative that we start controlling what we put into our body. Right. And if we can start controlling what we put into our body, then maybe we could start preventing some of these symptoms, from surfacing. Like for instance, like my dad, to refer back to him, he didn't have any issues with his sugar for the entire weekend. He did some intermittent fasting. He did, he ate a good meal, but he didn't starve himself. He didn't lose any weight. He lost a little bit of water or whatever, but you know what? He was feeling great. And I think that everything comes back to what we're putting into our body.
Amen. And tell him, that type 2 diabetes, I mean, as we know in our culture, it gets so just ignored. Oh, I'm just diabetic. But tell him that basically memory loss is type 3 diabetes.
Yeah.
People who have type 2 diabetes have a 2 to 3 times higher chance of memory loss. That'll get their attention.
I mean, you think there's a connection between dementia and cholesterol and diabetes? And do you think there's a connection with all of that?
I think the connection is more with blood sugar. I mean, our brains need fat. And I think there's there's also a big connection for Alzheimer's disease with another oral bacteria that's called Porphyromonas gingivalis. It's a bacteria that's been widely studied. They find it in probably 30-40% of brains postmortem of people that has suffered with memory loss, Kevin, and 0% of people who don't. This is a bacteria that Fuso, the other one I talked about, sort of bridges and gets it into the brain through the blood-brain barrier. And it's very close to being causal for lots of people for memory loss. Crazy. I mean,
so that
the mouth really is the forgotten orifice.
Well, didn't you what do they call it? Trademark that or whatever? Did you have a book on that? So, but yeah, no. So I just think that I think that a lot of this stuff, I guess that comes back to the metabolic approach of or the metabolic theory of cancer. You never did anything repurposed as far as, like an anti-parasitic or anything like that. You did the other stuff that you had mentioned, but you never dabbled in any pharmaceutical repurposed stuff.
I did. I interviewed Joe Tippins.
Really?
MyCancerStory.rocks. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's from Oklahoma. Lots
yeah.
of from Oklahoma, Kevin. I mean, so he's quite a phenomenal guy. And so I do take Panicure 3 days a week.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
I take Panicure. I take the dog dewormer 3 days a week, and I sprinkle it on my fermented kefir yogurt that I make. People can find all that on my website, but I think fermented foods are really a key to gut health. I've seen people just heal their guts with real food, and fermented food is an ancient food. I mean, that's, refrigerators really haven't been around that long. So people had to ferment food, and every single culture has some form of fermented food. So one thing that I see really helping people is this fermented yogurt that you can make at home. It's delicious, and
I want to hang out on this topic for a second. But I know you you have you have a few things to plug, right? Can we plug some things?
Well, what do you mean?
Well, you have a podcast.
Yeah, I have a podcast by television. Dr. William Davis has been on a couple of times. Have all kinds of great guests. I'm looking forward to having you, Kevin.
What's the name of it? I want everybody else to hear it. I know what it is. I want you to tell everybody else.
Called Vitality Made Simple. It's not. It's full body vitality. It's not a dental podcast, so your listeners can relax. But it's all about just really enjoying life, and that, like we've talked about, Kevin, that it's got to be intentionality, that we have to take responsibility for our own health, because it affects our relationships. And, at the end of life, it's going to be the relationships that are left. We're all going to age. Hopefully we're going to age more slowly than other people. But I have that. And then I have a robust YouTube channel as far as talking about the yogurt. And
really?
How to make the yogurt.
Yeah, where do I find that?
You'll find it on YouTube, Dr. Debbie Ozment. And and then go to my website, drdebbieozment.com. It's OZMENT, DEBBIEOZMENT. So just having a lot of fun there, because I want to equip people to feel good without doctors.
Well, you know what? I'm at a point in my life where I kind of have come to the conclusion that if there's a line ahead of me of all these people that whatever that particular ailment or disease is, if there's a history of success stories that doctors have or whatever, and they're all ahead of me, and I could see that these guys have had success in treating whatever ailments or diseases were ahead of me, okay, I'm going to let those guys treat me too. But if there's a whole bunch of non-curing, I'm not sure that I'm trying to be the first guy. I'm not sure that so if their Western medicine approaches don't start becoming more multidimensional and less cookie cutter, because, I got the gold standard. I went to one of the top 5 hospitals, actually all of the top 5 hospitals for cancer in the country. I've been all of them. And the funny thing is I got the gold standard of treatment. What happens to the people? What kind of treatment do the people that don't go to those hospitals get? Do they get the silver standard of treatment? Do people hold back because they don't have a good job or something? What do you mean, the gold standard of treatment? If they start, and that gold standard of treatment is the only dimensional view that they take. They don't take any metabolic. They don't take the environment that you're in. They don't take all the other elements, your diet and all the other elements involved with this disease. They don't take that into consideration. They just cookie cutter. I'm going to cut it, poison it, dissect it, whatever. And I'm wondering when, at one point in time, the gold standard of care is going to be multidimensional instead of just a cookie cutter approach.
Well, I think at some clinics, they're starting to do that. People have to seek it out. It's not going to be probably paid with insurance, unfortunately. But I totally agree. This integrative approach is the key. I am not anti chemotherapy. I am not anti pharmaceutical, but I am for people first equipping their body to heal on its own, and then adding very carefully other pieces of that healing puzzle. I mean, I believe, Kevin, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And I fully believe that we should use the brain that God gave us to be discerning on what we want to have done to us. Not everything your doctor offers you is the best thing for you. And that's why you have a podcast. That's why I have a podcast, to help people make better decisions for themselves. It's like you said, it's so much to learn.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all make choices, right? We all, like Adam and Eve, like the forbidden fruit. We all make choices. There's things that you do and there's things that you don't do. But the bigger mistake is when you don't do something that you should do, right? So at least keeping an open mind.
But Kevin, I totally agree. I saw a patient. She's 32, stage 4, maybe 3, stage 3 breast cancer. She said, she came in to see me. She said, now my doctor told me that my doctor's nutritionist told me that it's a myth that sugar feeds cancer.
Faster than mine.
Yeah.
Mine did too.
Seriously. And so I said, well, have you had a PET scan? She said, yeah. I said, what is a PET scan? A PET scan is radioactive sugar that goes straight to the tumor. It's a diagnostic because cancer cells use sugar at a rate of about 200 times higher than a healthy cell. And she's like, whoa, well, she's in ketosis now. And she feels good. She's lost 13 pounds, and her side effects have subsided. And, so it's because she was willing to do, like you said, make the decisions. But if she had followed her doctor blindly, who knows? Hopefully her outcome will be so much better. And I believe it will, because of what she's doing on her own.
Well, her quality of life is certainly better now than what it was. I can tell you that because I personally know that from my own experience. The stuff that you carry around in your gut is so taxing. It's like carrying around a concrete brick in your belly. You're not evacuating as much as you're consuming. I can tell you that. So until I started paying attention, it wasn't, eating wasn't, it wasn't a scheduled thing. I didn't have to eat at the social events. I didn't have to do the drive-throughs. I didn't have to do the bag food, the box food, the whatever, so the processed stuff, I didn't have to do it. And once I found out that food was not my friend, food's not your friend. Not in the United States. I don't know where food in the US is not your friend. And then once you vilify it, you don't mind fasting. You gotta really have a villain in this story to be successful. So
a great point. I love that. My husband used to smoke before I met him, and he said he had to vilify the cigarettes.
Yeah.
So what you're doing, I mean, this is fantastic with food.
Yeah, I mean,
it's going to make you sick. It's got to be the villain.
Yeah, I mean, because otherwise you become a victim, right? I mean, if you don't have a villain to get mad at, then all of a sudden you become that little coward person in the corner that just, cowering in the fetal position because you're a victim. No. You got to change the narrative so you can control the outcome. You've got to have a villain in this story. And that is what causes this stuff. And what causes this stuff is what you're putting into your body. Mm-hmm. That's how you know that this is definitely a metabolic disease. So, Doc, hey, Doug, I'm so very grateful that we actually connected. And you know what? If you have any openings on your schedule, I would love to come on to your show. It's, I feel like I actually intentionally let this run over a little bit so I could pick and choose my content. I just.
Well, it will be an honor to have you, Kevin. I will be in touch. I love your spirit, your enthusiasm, your curiosity. I mean, you are curious, and I think that's a real key to healing. I would invite your listeners to join me on Instagram. I have some goofy Instagram health pieces, but have a lot of fun there. And it's just, a variety of integrative things like you and I have talked about today.
Oh, that's so cool. You know what? You set the schedule. You'd let me know when I could come over, and I definitely would love to join you on your show. I feel like this conversation has to continue.
Let's do it again, and I'll be more ready. I'm actually writing a book, and so I'll have more and more research to share with you. And you and I are both we're kindred hearts. We want to help people help themselves. We want to help people feel better and have hope.
But isn't this crazy? Like, I feel like this is a little like you mentioned Dr. Seyfried that you had interviewed. They started looking into this stuff like in 2021, like the metabolic theory stuff. I mean, not originally. I mean, but he started like proving this stuff out, and it's such an old theory that was never dissected, I guess, and they just kind of got brushed under the rug or whatever. But it just kind of seems to be that this is pretty fundamental. And if we are in control of our own vessel, I feel like this is such a living, breathing thing, and it's so new. In 2021, that was after I got diagnosed, so this is pretty new, right? The research and stuff like that is pretty new, right? So, well, at least the public speaking about the research, I should say, is pretty new, post COVID, I guess. But I just got censored. So,
well, this is decentralized medicine at its best.
Oh yeah. No, so I think that by the time we reconnect, there's going to be more information on the table to discuss. I think that, I learn stuff every day. Every interview that I do, I learn stuff. You've knocked the ball out of the park today with all these things that begin in the oral vicinity of your dentistry. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that blew my mind, and because it all makes sense of why I have mush mouth now, and I just I feel like some of these things could have some signs could have presented themselves had we known what to look for. And I think just information is everything when it comes to the colorectal aspect of it. I did see signs. But, downstairs, I never thought to look for signs upstairs, so yeah. So I think that it is, it's imperative that we continue to search for knowledge. Information is power.
It is. And people are searching for it. People are hurting.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, Doc, I will let you go. And thank you so much for being here. Like and subscribe and share all these videos, please. If you're watching, check Dr. Debbie Ozment out, and go ahead and we'll see you at beatingcancertoday.com. Thank you so much.